La main dans la main, traverser les boulevards, les yeux dans les yeux, comme un roman de gare. J'ai toujours sur moi un polar de toi. Marcher sous la pluie, avec toi dans la nuit, c'est pas un problème. Dis-moi juste et je t'aime. Les bijoux, les fleurs, je vois la vie en couleur. Je me demande tous les jours, que ferais-je sans toi? Et tu vois, il paraît bien que l'amour, oui ça ressemble à ça. Quand viendra le jour où tu ne seras plus là, tu sais mon amour, j'aurai toujours sur moi. Tu sais, devine quoi? Un polar de toi. Je me demande tous les jours, que ferais-je sans toi? Et tu vois, il paraît bien que l'amour, oui ça ressemble à ça. Je me demande tous les jours, que ferais-je sans toi? Et tu vois, il paraît bien que l'amour, oui ça ressemble à ça.
We're live.
Mic check, mic check, mic check. Chat, talk to me. Chat, talk to me. Talk, chat. What's good? What's cracking, chat? What's my levels looking like? Aunt Taylor, I see you. Uncle Ruff said I got good levels. What's good? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, man. We was off for the holiday. We took a little break. It's been a long time. Shouldn't have left you without some controversial takes to step to. I just freestyled that, Trey. Ben Gordon was good. Welcome to Count the Dings Live After Dark. Got a very special show for you guys tonight. Of course, Black Trey, my brother.
What's good? What's good?
And my man Amin El Hassan was good.
What's cracking?
You know, just chilling, man. We got a dope show. We got a dope show, of course. We got my man Tynes.
Damn, that's how you say my joint. That's crazy.
How am I supposed to say it?
Well, you know, if you're nasty with it, you say Tynes, but it's really Tynes.
Oh,
Get your bars off.
Yes, listen, y'all got the gun sound. Pop that joint off. You know what I mean?
I fuck with that. Man, Tyler Tynes, where the fuck did I get tennis from?
I'm saying, like I'm Serena, but you crazy.
I just peeped Connor, one of our biggest supporters. I think his last name is Tennis. Ain't it Tennis? I'm not making that up. Whatever, man. Anyway, man, Tyler Tennis in the building. We haven't added him to the Skype yet, but he Tyler Tynes is in the building. He'll be on in a second. But yeah, man, just so many things. Oh, there we go. You popped in now. You say what up to the people, Tyler.
Yeah, what it do? What it do? You know what I'm saying?
What
it do?
Oh, he getting after it.
Go. Feel the vibe. Smell it up.
Now, what varietal are you drinking right there? Is that a Pinot Gris? Is that a Sauvignon? What you got over there?
I don't know. LeBron sent me this. You know what I mean? He said just open it. He said just open it. And Meek sent me another one, and he said just open it. And so I don't even look at the label. I don't even look at the label.
Was it a twist off, or did you have to corkscrew?
Look, man, all the homies know I don't play with that cork shit. So twist that joint off. You know what I mean? You got to crack that shit like a rib. You know what I mean?
That's what's up. Now, are you calling in from Philadelphia? I know you're a Philadelphia native, or are you live?
North Philly forever. Yeah, I mean North Philly forever. But nah, I'm in Brooklyn. Yeah,
An undisclosed location on the planet of Brooklyn. That's what's up, boy.
I'm in the Polo Lounge.
He's in the Polo Lounge. I love it. Hey, man, I'm so happy you came onto the show, bro. One, because, you know, I read your shit on the Ringer.
That shit suck. That shit suck.
What your work on the Ringer is bad? You don't respect your own work? That's crazy.
I don't respect myself. That shit's horrible.
I read your joint on the Ringer. I know you got a Yeah, the sound effects is coming through, Jade. I know you got a pod coming out about the life and trials of one Cam Newton.
Nah, you had it right the first time. Right.
About the life and times of Cam Newton, and that's going to be on the Ringer Podcast Network. I know they had you out in the streets covering the protests, which I thought was just fire. I think you was on Hang Up and Listen with my dudes over at Slate. I caught you on there.
They might have name dropped me. You know, I ain't going. They ain't sent the bag yet. You know what I mean? I only.
My fault.
If y'all don't know the boy Big Woes, he sent me 100,000 just to show up.
Of course. They know Calvin D's got the Rackies on deck, and so, you know, I thought it was important to have you on, man. How long have you been over there at the Ringer?
It'll be 2 years in December. It'll be 2 years in December, January area. Yeah.
And what were you doing before that?
I was at SB Nation doing the exact same job, covering the intersection of race, politics, and sports. So I've been doing this full time, just on this beat, almost 5 years. So.
Wow, look at you! You a goddamn vet, motherfucker! Like
that's 100 years in internet years, right?
I'm saying. I'm saying.
That's pretty cool. How did you sort of find your way into making that what you wanted to be your bag? Because some people are just like, look, I just want to talk about fucking hoop, or I
Yeah,
just want to talk about sneakers, or I just want to
yeah.
talk about whatever. What made you want to, sort of connect the dots with those three things?
Well, my mom told me I had to stop selling bricks. So after that, you know what I mean? Nah, for real. I mean,
Shout out to Valletta Wallace.
we was I took all of Ho's bricks. Nah, so we was in North Philly and we grew up in North, and it's a tough place to grow up. I found a way into a real nice white private school. They paid for all that, and so then I found my way into a real nice white private college, and they paid for all that. And played a few sports, kept a few majors, kept a few minors, and I think I decided after my freshman year that it was something I would enjoy doing. I did freelance college basketball work for SB Nation for almost 3 years. Interned at the Philadelphia Inquirer and Daily News. Basically breaking stories on the Sixers and the college basketball scene in Philadelphia, which one of the biggest ones in the country, and built myself a bit of a national following from that when I was starting at 17 years old. And so did that. And then my senior year, I had been doing college basketball for so long. I was established on campus for what I was doing. And I just thought sports sucked. And so I was like, I don't really fuck with this no more. And so it's funny enough, I watched, I think it was the 5th season of The Wire. And I kind of was very much just like more aligned with that. I was like, I don't understand why I'm not helping black people. And if my idea and if the prism under which that I'm helping black people is by writing about sports, straight sports, I can't fuck with that. And so I turned down all my offers out of college. I went to a small newspaper in Atlantic City, New Jersey, covered the crime beat for about 8 months, went to HuffPost, covered the political beat, Congress, the White House, the Flint water crisis, basically a race and politics beat for about 3 or 4 months. And SB Nation asked me, why can't you combine your old job with your new job? I was like, I thought that's the only shit white people could do. So once they told me it was real, I was like, it's lit. And so I had just turned 22. It was about 4 or 5 months before the Kaepernick moment happened. And, they were one of the only newsrooms in the country fully invested into that intersection, and not just in the macro sense, in the sense that there's a race and sports story, an intersectional sports story in every county in America. And we got the money, so go and find them. And that was that. And I think the rest of the work speaks for itself. The bars speak for themselves. You know what I mean? And so straight like that, went to the Ringer after I got in Best American Sports Writing when I was 23. And then, Bill Simmons made the Hotline Bling, and here we go.
That's that.
Spotify money.
Yeah. Hey, that's an amazing story.
This man is a bag chaser. You cannot fault the chasing of the bag, especially, when you find yourself doing a very important work in the process. And what's so crazy, man, is I feel like a lot of people growing up right now are they understand that you have to make shit intersectional. I think younger people right now, whereas like when I was younger, if I was like 18, like the idea that I would I'm 33 now, I'm washed up. The idea that I would go out of my way to racialize myself in any profession that I chose, that's not something that you were taught to do. Coming up,
opposite.
like
you were taught the opposite.
Yeah, 100%,
like
100%.
The idea that you would go out of your way to let people know, like, no, I want to make everything I do black. That's not something that was taught to us, especially when you go to college, you're supposed to be going for self-discovery and all this academic pursuits and all of that, but really they training you for the workforce. And
they trying to at least. Trying to at least, but journalism school is mostly a scam. I think anytime I go to a major college or university at this point and I talk to them, or whether it be the National Association of Black Journalists or whoever really kind of gives me the pulpit to hit a few bars every now and again, I think one of the first things I say to prospective students is that don't go to journalism school. People herald, white sports editors herald the University of Michigan. University of Michigan don't got a journalism school. All the boys who do journalism out there, they major in business, they go to the student newspaper, they get all the jobs that we can't have. And so that's the reality of the situation. If I was to do it over, and don't get me wrong, I appreciate my broadcast major, my photography minor, and my print major. But I would probably study international politics. I'd probably study Africana studies. I'd probably study something that actually was much more
that you were interested in.
You know what I mean? As opposed to journalism.
Yeah, and not only that, it's actually more applicable to what you do day to day, because the reality is, like, most of the journalism tenets, you're gonna learn it on the job.
100%.
You're gonna learn it on the job. I didn't have a journalism background. I didn't know one thing about which camera to look at, and none of that. They just shoved my ass on TV and said, go talk for 5 minutes or whatever. So, like, at no point have I felt hamstrung by my lack of journalism chops.
Right.
But like, luckily for me, I had like a world of experience of knowing about the thing I'm supposed to talk about. So I absolutely see what you're saying. If I'm going to talk about international politics, if I'm going to talk about, race relations, all these things, the last thing I need is the who, what, when, where, how speech from day one of Journalism 101. You need more of that applicable stuff. So, yeah,
I mean, I appreciate it, though. I do appreciate my journalism major to a certain point, because I think when it comes to instincts, when it comes to kind of getting into the certain faces and really declassifying a few different items, it becomes much easier to do. You know what I'm saying?
What?
I think.
Give me an example of like one time where it came in handy. Like, woo, I'm glad I got that journalism degree.
I think it's easy for me because I was really thrown immediately into the political sphere. And so when you cover politics, especially when you cover Congress, especially during the 2016 election, you got to be fearless with it. There's a certain there's just a certain thing to it where you can't be no punk. You know what I mean? Like, Congress moves so fast every day. People walk past you so quickly every day. You got to learn 500 members. You got to learn who their staffers are. You got to learn who to run up on when votes are happening. Doing that for even 2 weeks will teach you almost immediately how to run up on somebody in a different way. I don't think a lot of the coaches, especially when you think about the NBA and more so the NBA than the NFL, a lot of the coaches, a lot of the personnel, they're not used to that. We coddle our coaches. We coddle the people who we're covering. We're fans of these people. I ain't fans of nobody. I'm here to do a job. I'm here to do a job. You know what I'm saying? And so if you were in the way of that job, I got questions for you. And so that's just the way it goes down. I mean, one example of that, like you asked, was 2017. Stephon Clark got murdered in Sacramento. Immediately, I got on the plane. The community said they needed something from the players. The players said they was doing fine enough. I was with the community every day. And so when I went and saw the players at churches, at games, at practices, I told the players that the community felt that they wasn't doing enough. And they said, we the best league in the world at this. And I said, that's not good enough. And so it got to a moment where me and Steve Kerr were in a scrum in 2017. And I asked him straight up. I was like, well, you preach this game, but you think it's contradictory when we coming right to the door of this stuff? It's right outside your door and y'all don't show up to rallies. Y'all don't show up to protests, but y'all say y'all support. But how do you quantify support? And Steve looked me in my face and he was like, you serious? And I was like, why wouldn't I be? and he gave his answer. And then, almost immediately, you saw 35 news articles, the AP, the NBC, Sacramento Bee, talking about me like I wasn't shit. People on Twitter talking about me like I wasn't shit because I would dare challenge Steve Kerr. All right, that's just
that's what you're supposed to be doing. And I do want to welcome in Ben Siripipat from marketing to the building. What's up, Ben? Welcome to After Dark.
Yo, it's good. It's definitely after dark when you got a 2-year-old at 10:30 at night. This shit is late.
Well, that's good. Yeah, go ahead, Ben. You said you. No,
I was gonna just say like 10:30 at night feels like when you walk out of the club and like you just kind of like that ghost just floating by you. Like, oh look, there's some people over there. I don't know if I could talk to them, but what are we doing next? What are we doing?
I love that.
You got that daze about you.
but Tyler, man, the Cam Newton thing, I don't need to ask you realistically why you wanted to dig into Cam Newton and his story, because from everything you said, it's implicit why, right? Like, this dude has been one of the most, specifically in the media and how he's covered, has been so racialized in a way that, like, I can't think of other people who their coverage has been so racialized from the start. From Florida, from the word go, because wherever he was at in GA, that's not national news. But Florida, University of Florida, is a national program. Obviously, he was a highly touted recruit, and everything about him was just, the coverage of him was just outsized. But I would love to know what drew you specifically to the Cam Newton story.
I think it's a very, very singular answer for what you asked me, and then it can be broken apart, right? And so I think at the small level, Cam Newton was the person who became the vanguard to the current crop of black quarterbacks that we see taking over the NFL right now. If you think about the history of the sport, the game was not made for black people. It was made to denigrate the black body. It was not made for black folks to excel at the position. They made sure at every single mark, the gatekeepers, the power brokers, the scouts to the actual position coaches, ensured that talent was racially stacked and placed elsewhere. If that's been the truth from 64 and even beyond that, but let's just say when the league started, 62, 64 area to right now, when Lamar Jackson could barely become a quarterback before he was the MVP at 22 years old. If that's been true for the entirety of the history and will continue to be true for the rest of the history, then Cam Newton, what he was able to do as a ceiling breaker, as a glass breaker in 2010 and 11, dressing how he does, talking how he does, acting unapologetically himself for good and for bad, and it is both good and bad.
Yes.
That creates an extension to which you can have a Deshaun Jackson, to which you could even have a Dak Prescott, right? And so if there's no Cam Newton, because you remember on the other side, you got Steve McNair and Donovan McNabb and Michael Vick and the guys who were really touching at it and grasping at it, especially for Michael Vick, who broke it open. Cam, though, Cam was the best of both worlds. He was both the highly rated talent that you couldn't deny and equally a trendsetter from Atlanta, of all places. And so you don't get Deshaun Watson, you don't get Lamar Jackson, you don't get Russell Wilson, you don't get the current crop of black talent if you don't have every aspect of what happens to Cam Newton. That by itself, and the fact that he ain't did a sit-down interview in almost 5 years, is enough to try to chase his ghost around the country.
I love
Tyler,
that.
I got a question, Waz.
Go ahead, brother.
I'm only gonna subscribe to the podcast if you break down his font.
Can't do it. Can't do
Hey,
it.
hey, look, listen. If you can break down the font and
Is it Wingdings? It's Wingdings, bro.
Look, it's a Unicode. I don't know what's going on with it. If you can tell me the font and dress code, I'm in.
You ain't even got to tell me what it is. Just tell
The
me
dress code
why.
is I'm rich and I'm from the Atlanta area.
Yeah, that's what it
And
is.
see, that's the thing, man. This started when he was in 6th grade. You know what I mean? Like this started. You'll hear it in the first episode, dropping Monday on Spotify. Yeah, you know what I mean. This has happened since he was in the 6th grade, and so that's the thing about it, is that we think when we see this dude, and Joel Anderson actually had a great quote about this, and he's in the podcast as well. You know, the majority of people who watch the NFL are white, by far, right?
Yep.
In the 70s to 80 range as far as fan percentages. White folk don't know nothing about black folk by and far. And so if you don't know nothing about black folk as a diasporic large, and you damn sure don't know nothing about Atlanta, when you see Cam Newton, you're confused. You go to Atlanta, Cam Newton fit in.
Yeah, of course.
Tyler, I'm from Compton and I see Cam Newton and I'm confused.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, right? But Atlanta has had a subculture of style, trends, music that can be huge in Atlanta and don't necessarily make it out. So I think that you really got to know Atlanta to understand what's going on with Cam, the style, the attitude, right?
I think it depends, right? Because every major black hub of culture been across the United States and across the world has that same aspect. We in Philadelphia, we talk a certain way, we get down a certain way, you know, we fight with our eyes, right? You in Memphis, you might fight with your hands. It might be a little different, you know what I'm saying? And so if you in New York, you might be talking about a different way. You got a different style. You might wear butters to the basketball court in the church. And so every intersection of black culture has some specificity to it, right? Like it's not a science about it. It's the same way white folk be from Montana and be from Alabama. They ain't the same white folk. Some similar, but it's not the same.
Don't you ever call me Montana folk again. Slander I won't stand for.
According to Kanye, Montana is a vibe.
It's apparently a vibe.
It's a vibe. Hold on. But you know what? You misspoke early, and I thought it was prophetic that instead of saying Deshaun Watson, you said Deshaun Jackson. I want to get into Deshaun Jackson.
Can't do it.
And the ridiculousness that happened today, just the pure ignorance and hate speech is what it was from his account. There's no other way to categorize it. It's ignorance, it's hate speech, it's racist, it's bullshit, whatever. But I do want to talk about
I need a drink now.
I want to talk about it because it reminded me of the conversation that nobody wanted to have that J. Cole was trying to have, which was, there's cats that need to get better, get smarter, receive the message, right?
Was J. Cole trying to have a conversation?
I think that's what he was trying to do. I think there's a lot of baggage, and we talked about this on previous shows. I think J. Cole brings a lot of baggage because of the patronizing ways he's talked about women in the past that people brought into that song, which you could say that's everybody's fault, for sure. But I think that song specifically, if somebody thinks what he was trying to say, look at Ben. If somebody thinks what he was trying to say is black women need to figure out how to talk to black men, I think you bringing your own biases into that verse because that's not what he was saying. But whatever. The point being that there are people who do need to hear a certain type of message so that they can take themselves to a certain level of enlightenment, right? Like spiritually, mentally, whatever. I think Deshaun Jackson is clearly one of those people. That brother needs some help. That's clearly, obviously, he needs some help. And I think that the way that we have these conversations online is not in a way that somebody like Deshaun Jackson can access it. I just don't think so. I think there's a way that he can access information, right? And you saw it in that whack ass book. But I'm just telling you, like that the manner of speech that we use online when people say shit like misogynoir and benevolent misogyny and all of that shit, you can't talk to normal people that way and expect them to access the messages that we want to get to them. And I think, again, I'm not making excuses for Deshaun Jackson. I'm just saying clearly that brother needs some help.
But I want to hop in here.
Go ahead, Ben.
Right? Because people on this know me, and I don't really talk about being Jewish because it's never been something that I have chosen to embrace as like an identifier of me. I love a meme just laughing.
I'm gonna say because that was I'm gonna text it to you. I'm not gonna say it.
But the thing about this that bothers me is, one, first and foremost, I just felt like it was just an easy win to just be like, it wasn't even like he stumbled on something, was like, I didn't know it was Hitler. He actually defended the fact that it was Hitler, right? Even though it was wrong. And then you have Steven Jackson coming out and being like, I'm going to speak the truth. This is all the truth and blah, blah, blah. And what bothered me is not that you can have some ignorant people. What bothered me was that so many people I respect that I cape for years, not since George Floyd, I'm talking for years, pro-Kaepernick, pro-Black Lives Matter, anti-hate speech, all this stuff, just come out and say something. Like, right? Like, and I'm sorry that maybe I'm looking for stuff that I shouldn't be looking for. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not saying this is some all lives matter shit. I'm not saying any of that. To me, it was just, I expected some people I really respect to just be like, this is some bullshit. Like, and I didn't get it. The only person I saw really come at it was L. Duncan, who's a friend and whatever, but that was it. And that left me disappointed.
I'm gonna try and explain the psychology behind it. I think part of it, a lot of what Steven Jackson was saying, I think a lot of it, what I heard from him was whataboutism, right? You guys are mad at him, but what about when Riley Cooper did this? Y'all didn't say nothing, right? Which isn't.
I did.
I know. I'm saying that's what I felt the majority of his message was. But another large part of it is, and I think I wanted to talk about this on the pod yesterday. I forgot though. Yo, Black America, that is, I'm talking about Black America, not like people like me and Waz who are second generation or whatever. They have an infatuation with Farrakhan that I just can't understand. And obviously for me, it's a lot touchy because I'm Muslim. And I'm like, that nigga's claiming a religion that's not what he's doing. Right? If he wants to create his own religion and call it a different name, that's fine. But he's using the name of my religion to spread some of these things that are kind of like a weird ass propaganda. Not to say that there isn't any anti-Semitism in mainstream Islam. Obviously, there's a ton of that. But what specifically he talks about has a lot of this homegrown American anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, he also talks about a lot of stuff that is a lot about self-determination and Black pride or whatever. And what happens is people latch on to that and latch on to a very convincing speaking style, and they adopt everything. And so what Waz was talking about, what you can't rely on people to do is, we live in an information age, which means all information that's at your fingertips, but we don't have a society where people understand what is good information, what is bad information. So if I'm Deshaun Jackson, I've been living my entire life ignorant as fuck about everything. And now I've been stirred inside me an awakening of who am I? Who are my people? And I try to do the research because people say, Google's there. Why don't you just Google it? This is what you find when you Google. And there are going to be parts of it that speak to you. And then there are going to be other parts that maybe don't speak to you, but you're like, well, yeah, it's all part and parcel. In the same way that there are a lot of white people who in 2016 voted a certain way, maybe not because they were out and out, fuck these black people, but definitely because there were parts of a speech that resonated with them. Hey,
free trade. They love the free trade. There was a lot of stuff that they love. And hold on. First, I want to introduce Zach Harper to After Dark. I know he's on the phone and he looks like a shaggy dog, but Zach Harper's back, yo.
You know what I'm so sick of is people saying, "What happened to your hair? Why is it so long, motherfucker? It's a pandemic." Why? I mean, went through this last week. He's like,
the barbershop's open, dog.
So, as Amin said, so's COVID.
So's COVID.
Yeah. And my barber, the like 3 weeks in, thought I would do something nice. I'm like, you know what? Doing a lot of radio. I'm going to kick him $50 that I would normally spend right now. You know, kicked him some money. He goes, hey, come get a cut. I'm open. I'm healthy. And I was like, well, now I guess I'm never going back to him.
All
he's
right.
great.
Well, thank you for that, Zach. But Tyler, I want you to jump in because how did you receive the Deshaun Jackson stuff today?
Nothing to receive. I mean, it was bad. Like, it doesn't have to be a long conversation about it, right? It was bad. I think to the things that Mina was saying is that there is a very long history where there are black leaders, especially American black leaders, who are compelling for a variety of reasons that go very deeper than we are willing to see. Farrakhan is one of them. Craig Hodges was a person who in the 80s was on the Milwaukee Bucks and specifically got his teammates or wanted his teammates on the Bucks to go to a Farrakhan rally, to go to a Farrakhan church hearing. And the Milwaukee Bucks said, fuck you, and they traded him to the Suns. And so that, that happens, right? And that is how he became Craig Hodges to a certain extent. All of the people that we believe who are leaders are flawed. There are no good people. And so Deshaun Jackson is very clearly one of them. It's very also easy to say sorry. It's very easy to be like, I made a mistake. It's equally as easy for the people who would like to talk about Riley Cooper to be both wrong and right at the same time, right? I think a lot of the ways we have these conversations is that they're not nuanced or we don't allow them to be anything except absolutist. It's Deshaun Jackson messed up. Deshaun Jackson needs to say sorry. That's absolutely right. He does. He was wrong, right? I think the context within that for the Eagles organization being one that had Riley Cooper do something equally egregious and then gave him a contract extension, it's important context. Both of them people should be off the team. They shouldn't have been able to come back and play football. No more, no less.
I think part of this for me, and I've got to get over this, right? Like, I feel like I took it more personal because I feel like I've been fighting on the right side of history for a long time. And I can't, like, when you look at the way being Jewish is, they don't care if you convert, right? It's different than being black in the sense of I can hide it, right? The system is not built to hold me down. But when you see people marching in Charlottesville, chanting, Jews will not replace us, and something about Jewish blood, I don't remember, right? Today, it just reminded me that something that my grandparents told me who their families were murdered in the Holocaust was just like, don't forget, no matter what you choose to be, they'll always tell you you're Jewish, right? And I guess that was just what bothered me. But the thing that I spoke with Trey for hours about and that I have to accept is that educations are different, right? In the same way I get angry, but then I get over it at poor white people for not understanding this stuff because they've never been educated properly. I got to be the same openness to why black folk may not understand this and whatever. I still, my grievance today was just with some really well-respected people. I'll just say it. Like, I was a little disappointed. I don't get anything from Jamel. Jamel, I know her. She is a good person. She is brilliant. She's probably flawed, as Tyler said, as everybody is. I'm not denying that. But there's just some people who are in sports who I just felt could have just come up and I'm not even saying don't demand him get cut, fired. Just be like, let's condemn this because a lot of that silence. And then when you add Steven Jackson and you see, Amari in the comments and all these NBA players liking what Steven Jackson is saying on the first one where he says, Deshaun Jackson speaking the truth. Like, that's it's tough.
You want to hear something funny? The part that's the funniest to me is it's not even that it was anti-Semitic or whatever. It's fucking rife with falsehoods. First of all, Hitler didn't say this shit.
Right.
Hitler didn't like black people. What are you talking about, right?
That was
like Hitler didn't write the foreword for this dude's book, right? And also, black people are not from Israel. Like, let's just get that out the way. Like we're from. It's pretty obvious where we're from. There's a whole fucking continent over there.
Now, Waz, I do believe there's a group of people that disagree with Amin.
well
On that point.
Bro, but that's but that's a funny thing, Zach, because all my life I grew up in New York City. All my life, the black Israelites were a joke. They were these dudes that dressed stupid, standing on a street corner, and they would scream at white people, and there was always going to be some white person who's like, well, actually, and they're going to have a conversation. And we would just sit there and laugh at this conversation that's happening between the obvious crazy man wearing a turban and the obvious idiot with the glasses like, well, if you read the scriptures, like, I'm like, what are you doing? This guy doesn't care, right? With his hype man repeating everything he says. And the Lord said, it's beyond the anti-Semitism, Ben. The shit that's offensive to me is like, nigga, you read this and you believed it? Yeah. Like, you thought this is actually like,
I think
sense.
That's the confusing part to me is like, I'm trying to relate to what Deshaun Jackson was thinking in the moment of like, and maybe it has a lot to do with the whataboutism that you mentioned. I mean, that Steven Jackson was talking about, right? But I'm trying to think what his mindset was, and at the same time, I'm like, when you read that, what part connected for you? Like, what part resonated where you're like, yes.
I don't even think it's that tough, right? I think there are certain things that require conversation. I think there are certain things just dumb as shit, and so I don't think they require actual oxygen and energy, right? Like, some things are just dumb as shit, and they should be called as such, and we should move about our days. Right?
That's a fact, but I think this gets at something bigger in the sense that there's an awkward tension between Jewish people and black people in this country, because Jewish people have forged a path to full citizenship in this country. When they came here, they did not possess it, right? And there's this, you hear it all the time within black communities. You'll hear black people say, we need to be more like Jews. We need to do this. We need to stick together. Like, there's this constant looking to the Jewish people in America specifically. Because again, when you talk to the average person from my neighborhood, could not explain to you the difference between the Hasidic Jews in Crown Heights and people in Israel. I promise you they can't draw the distinction between Gal Gadot and, whoever their freaking landlord was in Bed-Stuy. I'm not saying that to be an asshole. I'm telling you that people don't know this shit. They don't know.
You're giving them credit into them even knowing that the landlord. See, that's a funny thing. Like, we were talking about this earlier, Ben, in the group chat. It's a lot of black people who will say this stuff and then be like, what about your homie Ben? And like, he Jewish?
Yo,
they have no idea. Because
Peter Rosenberg tells this hilarious story about when he first got hired at Hot 97, where people were calling up confused that they let a Jewish person on the airwaves because they literally thought a Hasidic Jew had gotten a late night show on Hot 97. This is not a joke. This is a fact.
I guess that's where my ignorance, though, too, comes into play, because my experience was always, I've told you guys all about my childhood. I was part of the minority. You know what I mean? So it was like I always felt on the out. So I assumed that my relationship with black people was the Jewish relationship with black people. And listen, and I'm learning about that, but you also know New York Metro is a little different because there's a high density of Jewish people in the population there as compared to other and good and bad Jewish people, right? Because we also got some of the worst, most difficult kind of people that represent my religion.
Why Zohan? I know. Yo, no, but real talk.
Look at Wise getting a mirror look right now.
Got you. Ben, real talk though. But that's why I said like certain kind of black people in this country, right? People typically who grew up somewhere in the southern United States where it's just they don't come across that like that they've had no experience as opposed to if you grow up in New York. It's a lot more people that you're gonna run into. You're gonna have a little bit more of a, I'm not gonna say open mind, but you're gonna have a little bit more experience.
Well, I think it's slightly more complicated than that too, right? Like we can't make it so monolithic where it's this idea that there's just a subsection of black people who feel this subsection of way. It's equally this subsection of white people feel the exact same way.
Sure.
Right?
Exactly.
It might even be a larger chunk. So the other side of it too is like it's something that Waz had brought up earlier about, what is the relationship between blackness and when it comes to Jewishness, right? But like we have pushed as an idea between whiteness since almost the inception of it, that there's an idea of the model minority, that it comes from people who are not black Americans, that it comes from people who are specifically leaning to what would be a white heterodoxy ideology. And so that could be Jewishness. That could be anyone who's of East Asian descent. Yep. That could be anyone who is not generationally black Americans. That could be a variety across the spectrum of how we perceive the social construct of race. And so I don't really think the onus here is on black people to figure this out or even deconstruct it. I think it's the idea that at least since the civil rights movement in recent history, that there has always been a push from a white identity that black people should be X because they're not that.
No, that's on the money because it is that, well, Jewish people came here because you hear that a lot.
Oh my God.
Particularly from Jewish people, like my people came here, we were persecuted, and look at us now, right? There's a lot of that stuff that
Irish people,
up.
Greek people,
Irish
Italian
people. Hey, like I used to work for a guy at the Knicks.
Cubans are doing it now. Don't worry, everybody's doing it.
He got a sign in his office that said,
all the rage.
Now hiring, Irish need not apply. And like that was like his way of saying, look, see, we had it hard or whatever. While obviously having a massive blind spot to all of the massive advantages, like, oh, I don't know, maybe not being enslaved and told you're not allowed to read or we'll kill you, right? Like things like that, which have a deleterious effect on black people in this country generationally, like you said, Tyler. But I think at the same time, it's this one incident speaks to what I'm seeing a lot of from a lot of different people, which is in an information age, when you give stupid people that access, they don't find information, they find misinformation. Misinformation is there to seek out the most ignorant among us. I should say ignorant, not the most ignorant among us, because we are searching for things that are going to validate what we might already believe. And so what you have here is, regardless of whether it was an anti-Semitic remark that he espoused or whatever, it's that the first thing I thought to myself was, bro, this shit is so obviously not real. Like, obviously, but that's what happens when you give people access, unfettered access. And part of, I don't know whose responsibility it is, I know who
YouTube.
Well,
Department of Education. No, it's the Department of Education's responsibility.
Well, that's because like everything in the internet age, right, or I guess social media age, we should narrow it down. Everything has become that scene in Good Will Hunting, right, where a dude is just reciting stuff he's read, and that's all everyone. There is no real learning for the majority of people now. It's just, I read this, I remembered it, I will throw it into a conversation, and it doesn't even have to be right half the time. It's just an example of, here's something I know, even if you don't actually know it. And that's been the problem with, to me, that's been the problem with a lot of this discourse and saying, hey, go educate yourself, right? Is that people don't know how to educate. As you've said, like people don't know how to educate themselves. They go, oh, well, I'll just go to the internet. I'll go to the internet.com and look it up, right? Except there's all this bullshit out here.
Man,
is that true?
I think for the majority, yes.
Is that true? Is that true or is that true?
Tyler, I'm going to tell you how it's true. Look at our COVID-19 cases in this country.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to go much further than that.
I think there's a difference, though, right? Like, I think there's a difference between kind of saying that, like, people on Twitter aren't as educated as I think they are, and or maybe I don't know if they're as educated as X, Y, or Z, whatever the standard could possibly be, and or the average American could be dumb, right? The average person could be dumb,
Sure.
right? Like I think we don't give it enough credit to this idea that like getting the education is both super easy and equally super hard,
Yeah.
right? Because the idea here is like blanket education exists. I could read a book, right? I could read a poem, right? I could read some Drake lyrics. You know what I mean? And so like you can get a blanket education on anything, but like the reality is, and I have this question happen to me frequently, is that like people ask me about my job or ask me how I got my job or ask me how I got good at my job. And like, motherfucker, I spend 3 hours every morning reading. You know what I mean? And so like, look at Adam Serwer, look at Nicole Hannah-Jones, look at Wesley Lowery, look at Bomani Jones, look at the people who we consider Black laureates of our time, those and so forth, that like these people, you know what I mean? They read, they absorb, they like take notes on this, they do free writing. Like a lot of my day is spent to reading. And so even that, like I ain't no motherfucking genius. I'm barely smart. You know what I mean? And so like that's the thing about it, right? Like it's blanket education and like deep down shit.
You know what makes you smart, Tyler? What to read. Because there are people, what me and Zach are talking about, there are people who read a lot and they read a lot of horseshit. And they don't have the skills to identify good reading from bad reading. From I read a Ta-Nehisi Coates thing versus I read something with Hitler wrote the foreword.
And that's what I think happens a lot of what because we want to move on because we don't have Tyler for much longer. He promised us a certain amount of time.
100 racks only get you but so much time.
Exactly.
Way to throw him under the bus.
Exactly.
100 racks only get you so much time.
There's a lot of cats spending a lot of time reading a lot of books, as Bomani Jones likes to say, that's my boy. That ain't got no barcode on them. And that's all I'll say. I didn't mean to name drop me, but you know what the hell I'm trying to do.
Yes, you did.
No, and I just want to, before we get Tyler out of here, because again, this is something that he is very keen to and attuned to, and it's happening all over fucking media everywhere. And whatever, the New York Times came for Bill Simmons, the founder of the company that you work for. And I don't know. I'm somebody who's been a fan of Simmons since early 2000s. I read the Times thing. I didn't feel any differently about how I felt about Bill Simmons. I was like, well, I would like for them to hire more Black people, but that's with LA Times, with New York Times, with every single media publication. I would love to know how somebody like you, who's over there and you're doing fucking race work over there, how you sort of intersect with the moment that we're in all of media. Because again, like New York Times is not some fucking blog. This is the publication of record, and they had something about, Bill Simmons and The Ringer. I just would love to get your whole thoughts on it.
I think for me, this becomes very easy to a certain extent, right? Like when I say easy, I mean in this extent. It's very easy to be mad. It is very hard to understand what we can do after mad. It's not to say that you being angry is not something that can take up all your time, because it's worth it. Yeah, I mean, plenty of angry people walked into the streets since 1951, since the first race riots in 1919, since the first response to police brutality in 1935, and they have just been angry, and that is okay, right? The question sort of becomes, what's different now? Will it actually be any different in 10 years from now? And what are we going to do? And so a part of that doing is being mad, right? Like, it's plenty of Black folks who work in media who are mad at several media companies. Media companies. There's
100%.
Plenty of media companies who I've walked into an interview for and told me I can't work there. And told me I can't work there for reasons that make no sense. And so I think the question kind of becomes, in this moment, right, where we have a catalyst for a power shift, what does it look like 6 months from now? Does The Ringer get a bunch more Black people? I hope so. I also think there's plenty of people at The Ringer.
Will.
I think
I have
we will
a sneaky suspicion that you guys will.
I got the same one. And so I'm fairly sure we'll diversify. And we've already seen it. Kalen Jones has gotten a job, right? He's covering the NFL. I think the same question for The Ringer is the same question for all of media, because The Ringer is not excused, nor are they special.
Right.
I have the same questions for The Athletic. I have the same questions for the LA Times. I have the same questions for the New York Times. I have the same question for any media company run by white people without Black people and at the axis of power to shift exactly how the editorial actions go for that place. And so we are bad, but we are also the norm. And so the question sort of becomes, I shouldn't be special in media, nor should anyone on this call. The question is, and Barack Obama actually, Michelle Obama said this in a Ta-Nehisi Coates piece, since you brought Coates up, called American Girl. She specifically had a reference back in 2009 when Coates wrote this piece that there was one Barack and Michelle Obama on one corner in Chicago. But on that same corner, there were 40 Barack and Michelle Obamas on that corner on the south side of Chicago. Just like that, it was 40 Tyler Tyneses in North Philly, at 30th and Oxford. The question isn't like having or winning some meta conversation about bad white people in public. The conversation is don't use black people as cudgels, right? The conversation is how do you get these black people into the places instead of just using them as fodder for arguments? And so that's the thing here is like, how do we get 40 more of me at the Ringer? How do we get 40 more of you at the Athletic? How do we get 40 more of a mean in NBA front offices? Yeah, I mean, that's the conversation. It's not
I
are you bad or good. It's the other thing.
I deal so my day job is in media, and I'm working on the other end of your business, right? I'm sending millions of dollars to different media publishers, and I've got meetings.
Well, not you, but the company you work for.
It's
not coming out of your
break me off, man.
I mean, look, I'll drop the Venmo. Yeah, I'll drop the Venmo. I mean, look.
As long as you didn't say Cash App, I know you legit. But
say no more.
Yeah, but so I sit in these meetings all the time, and we just pulled a lot of money for one of my clients, or actually for a bunch of my clients, from one of the biggest lifestyle publishers out there, who you guys can do the Google research as to what they were charged with. But the issue that I see most prevalent is people love marching in black culture as something they're selling, right? People love marching in the one black person they got doing something. This issue doesn't change, in my opinion. It's not about numbers. The NFL, the NBA have numbers of players in powerful, in theory, powerful employed positions. To me, the thing that I push for, and we've written whole new guidelines for how we want our publishers to work with us. I want to see senior people, right? I'm not knocking Sean Fennessy or Chris Ryan. Like I'm not knocking what they've done to get to in their career. But when everybody at that elite circle looks like Bill Simmons, right, there's a problem.
Sean Fantasy doesn't really look like Bill Simmons. I'm just fucking.
But to me, that's where I think we need to see the most change and the most change quickly. It was one of the reasons why, like, I really celebrated Alex Ohanian, like stepping down from being a board member of a company you founded. I don't care how wealthy you are. You build something from the ground up, you feel a sense of ownership to it. And to say, I'm directing this to a board seat to a black man, like, we need more stuff like that. Not saying we don't need more black people everywhere. I'm just saying we need senior people to get in there to talk about stuff to change perception at the highest level.
I don't know. Because to me, how long did Alex Ohanian have his job at Reddit before he stepped down? Right? So
12 years, 15
12
years,
years, right? So let's say that, right? In those 15 years, what's his record on diverse hire? And so that becomes my, well, I don't know either, obviously, but that's my question, right? And that question is much more prevalent, right? The thing about symbolism is that it can only go so far. It can only be a bridge to something monumental unless it's just symbolism by its own sake, right? The NBA can decide they want to put Black Lives Matter, movement for Black Lives doctrine on the back of their jerseys, but what happens when there still aren't any black people in the front office of the NBA, right? Like, that can only go so far. I don't care about that, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with that.
Oh yeah, and so that's my point though, right? Is that, like, we need to radically rethink all of this. Not a part of it, not a piece of it, not the top of it, not the bottom of it, all of it, right? And so, and just let's stay with the NBA example. If you have the NBA, which is allegedly the most powerful organization for sports on earth when it comes to player movement and engagement, right? The same NBA who has an anthem policy on the books for several decades, the same NBA that ran several black dissenters out of their league, the same NBA who has a commissioner after a commissioner who found an understanding that blackness is very marketable and within the last 15 years, right? The NBA also, like, don't want these dudes to protest that much. Like, Adam Silver gets asked the question very frequently, and he's like, Adam, what you gonna do about this, dog? And he's like, we'll assess it when it happens. They asked LeBron in 2016, hey, big dog, you gonna kneel? He said, I love the anthem. They asked Steph Curry the same thing. They said, hey, you gonna kneel? He said, I don't know. You know what I mean? I asked Kevin Durant this question myself in the same Sacramento story. I said, what does protest quantitatively look like? He said, I just want to play basketball. And here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with these answers in a vacuum, right? especially for black athletes and for black coaches, because the onus always falls in this very long rat race towards equity and equality in America on those black people to be the moral scoreboards of the country, and it's not fair. The question more so becomes, when's it going to be okay when they say no, which to me, it's always okay. When's it equally going to be okay to criticize them if they do say no? And how much are we going to push that same onus back on their white counterparts? Because those are the ones who actually need the question.
I mean, man, that's a step that I would love for us to see it take. Like, I would love for it not to take Drew Brees saying and doing something completely stupid to just bring up his record on the matter, just period. Like, It shouldn't have took what he did or said or anything. Like, I think that's the next step, but I think we're not there yet. I mean, go ahead.
Just Tyler, I had a question for you specifically. When
come on with it.
In the article, they talked about, when all these protests started after the murder of George Floyd, that Bill went to the pod with him and Russillo, and when asked, why didn't you have more diverse voices on this particular issue? His response was, "It's not open mic night." I might be paraphrasing there. How did you receive that, as you're not only a black guy who works here, but a black guy who works specifically in the intersection of race and sports and politics? Like, you are uniquely qualified to speak on this matter, and yet his opinion at that point was it's not open mic night, which that's the part I think I really kind of got startled by. It wasn't that Ryan was the only person who's available, or I just needed to go quick or whatever. It's not open mic night, as if to say that the rest of the other options were amateur hour.
So Toni Morrison said something very interesting to this point, and I'm paraphrasing obviously, but Toni Morrison has said the function of racism is distraction. And so for me, kind of being in these texts and kind of doing this work for as long as I have so far, which is not long at all because I'm only 26, I don't really get caught up, to be very honest with you. I have time to be mad, and I allow myself to be mad about certain items. But I don't really get caught up, because at the end of the day, this is something that can be said from any person who runs media. And so I think as somebody black who has to be in the press, you need to know these things before you sign your contract. Because once you have an actual working memory and a working idea of how these things could possibly shake out, in their worst and in their best, you'll never be surprised again. And at the end of the day, the entire pathos of why I do work is to tell a very transparent Black American story. That's mine, and that is what I want to share internationally and also nationally, because in the history of our press, we don't frequently have national people who care about Black people wholesale with the full funding to have and care and go around for those Black people, and specifically about that intersection. We've seen Bill Rhoden, we've seen Joe Anderson, we've seen, Greg from Deadspin, we've seen a plethora of people, Jamel Hill, we've seen a plethora of people care about this. But we specifically need to have more. And because I occupy that space, that's where I spend my time caring about it. I can't get wrapped up in other shit. I can't get wrapped up in being mad. I got to be concerned about my contract, my family being good, and specifically the Black people that I'm here to serve. It's no more, no less. If you come above that, I got to shut you out. Because again, the sheer function of racism is distraction. And I refuse to be distracted.
This brother right here is smart, man. Yeah, you smart. I'm gonna say this right now, because a year ago, he's great. No, he gave an answer right there that blew my mind, because a year ago, when Enes Kanter was fasting Ramadan and playing in the NBA playoffs, ESPN went like, I'm like, I'm right here. You want to ask me about some background? Not even I got to do the story of the interview. Ask me about some background. Learn something about it. But and I won't lie, that shit pissed me off, man. It pissed me off because it was at a time where I feel like they were purposely shutting me out, that I was being cold-shouldered. And to me, it's like, there's no better example than, imagine if The Athletic had a story about Haitian immigrants.
About Rio?
Yeah, about Haitian immigrants.
Oh, nah.
And their love for raw onions, right? And they were like, Zach Harper, can you write about it?
I got this, guys. Don't worry about it.
This is the same organization that had my wife Prim Saripapat host a Diwali celebration at ESPN, got her all dressed up, and then found out she's not Indian.
Oh my God.
There's photos of her.
That's a tough joint.
And because we got to get Tyler out here, and it is tradition, and the people in the chat said I would be corny if I didn't keep from tradition, just because we were having a serious topic about the racial ills of America. I got to ask you this and get you out on this, because it's a tradition on After Dark to get all up in our guest business. And so with that being said, what's your favorite part about dating in New York City?
Oh my God.
Y'all ain't shit.
That's such a Philly answer. That's such a Philly answer. I love my Philly people.
My favorite part about dating in New York. Oh man. It's a lot of options. I mean, you'll never be bored. I think that's the best I can say. I think when you think about like DC, I mean, I lived in DC for 3 years before I came here. DC is very specific. You know what I mean? I'm not Greek. You know, I don't wear pinstripes, and I don't work at a bank. So a lot of that, I don't got security clearance. You know what I mean? So a lot of that, I mean, we not speaking the same way.
Out type of thing. Right.
I think the thing I can appreciate about New York as a Philadelphian, as a North Philadelphian especially, is that, you know, if you don't know nothing about Philly, we real gritty. We ready to fight at breakfast. We ready to fight at church. We real gritty about it. You know what I mean? And so I can appreciate that there's a variety of that, right? Where I could have gritty, you know what I mean? I could have somebody chill, you know what I mean? It don't matter. It don't matter. But I think I think the best part about it is it's fun. It's fun, you know what I mean? Like you ain't never bored. That's the best I can say.
I love it. Hey, Tyler, man, I really appreciate you coming on and doing this with us. Yeah. You were fantastic. The fucking audience. The fucking audience loved it. Man, I knew you were gonna do an incredible job on here, but you blew us all away, man. Thank you so much, dude. Make sure you guys are reading his work on The Ringer, and of course, could you tell them about the Cam Newton pod that's about to drop?
Where the mic at? Listen, let me tell you something real quick. July 13th, the album drops, produced by Isaac Lee. The album drops, produced by Isaac Lee. I ain't talking about 4 a.m. in Calabasas. I mean, the album drops. You know what I mean? 9 a.m. in North Philly, it drops. The Cam Chronicles, July 13th on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, or make sure it's on Spotify. All right? Produced by Isaac Lee. You know what I'm saying? 6 episodes, all bangers, all bars.
All bangers. It's already a classic. It's already classic.
No features. No features. You know what I mean? But for real, July 13th, we put in a year's worth of work into it. A lot of people have put in blood, sweat, and tears. You know what I mean? I've been on way too many planes, ate way too many trash foods, been yelled at by way too many parents for y'all not to listen to this joint. You know what I mean? And so then I can go to sleep. Y'all listen to the joint, I can go to sleep for a few weeks. You know what I mean? Before we do the next thing. But July 13th on Spotify. Get the joint. Listen to the joint.
You got some Beanie tracks in there? Look,
man, Isaac Lee is a great composer for The Ringer. You know what I mean? Y'all heard Hallelujah. You know what I mean? And so the boy, he went in. I mean, I heard we've been trying to get the commercial license to Dream and Nightmares, but it didn't come through in time.
Hold on, wait a minute.
But
they was opening up the checkbook out here.
It didn't come through in time, but for real, Isaac got busy on the track. If you heard the promo, if you heard the commercial on all the Ringer feeds right now, it sounds like a Meek song. So that's what you can expect.
I love that Meek Mill type beat on the podcast. Hey, man, thank you so much for coming on again. We appreciate you, brother.
Of course. And the last thing I'm going to say is that podcast going to be real black. So enjoy that.
We need it. Anyway, that was the boy Tyler Tynes, man. Incredible freaking guest. That was amazing. Jay, what are you trying to do right now? I guess we can go for another 10 minutes because you know Jay got a family. We got to feed the family.
11 o'clock there. What do you mean? The family's asleep.
Are they?
Shouldn't they be? 11 o'clock.
But yeah, man. I mean, you got anything for me? No, nobody got nothing for me. That was it. That was good. We could just recap what we did with Tyler.
Should we tell him about the acquisition deal yet? Or no? Should we not tell them that?
Whoa, easy killer. Easy killer. That one is still in the holster.
I thought I was playing close to the sun.
That one is still in the holster. Nah, man, it was dope, and all of these things are happening at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think you can divorce Deshaun Jackson's crazy ass, dumbass shit from the moment that we're in. I think he felt like I need to say something, and unfortunately, he said some ridiculous shit. And like, I think it's all of a piece with each other. That's what I think is fascinating, man. Like the controversy that Simmons is getting into, the controversies at shit like Bon Appetit, the Deshaun Jackson, all the complex, all of this stuff. I think it's all of a piece with freaking George Floyd. It's crazy, man.
Yo, by the way, I just want to say, in the reflection behind you I realize now those are candles. But at first, I thought it was like a New York pizzeria, like oregano.
Oh, like
Parmesan. Like that's what it looked like with me. I was like, why is like
this is you see it. There you go. It's a nice little candle with the top.
Yo, why is she hiding? Tell her to stop.
Like? Also, she's not good at hiding.
Don't grow up.
Oh.
Yo,
Okay.
how long we got till we get to have the Waz crashed wedding? That's my question.
Well, y'all won't be crashes. You guys will be invited. Y'all will be.
I don't want to be invited. I want to crash.
Who's where? Oh, okay. My Tamar wants to know who's there. Amin, Zach, and Ben. Yes, waving mirror. Yep. Anyway, the dog has been sick. His Crohn's disease is flaring up, and so trade him in. Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
you gotta.
man. Like,
Kelly Blue Book on it's not great, but you can get something.
Send him back to Palmdale where you found this broke ass. But anyway,
what you said about Deshaun Jackson, that whole thing is like the need to say something, right? Yeah. And there's so much where like, I think if people just took a fucking breath, it just like I gotta say it, and just took a breath. There's so many times.
I don't think I'm gonna disagree with you. I don't think it's because he felt he needed to say something. I think he read something that resonated with him, and was like, "Yo, I gotta share this." It wasn't like I gotta make a comment.
And another thing, Zach, that people don't realize too about stuff like Black Israelites, nations of the Nation of Islam, the 5% of Nation of Gods and Earths or whatever. A lot of it is a sort of market overcorrection for the black man is lazy, fat, stupid. Right. Way too sexual, blah, blah, blah. It turns into, well, actually, we're God's chosen people. Well, actually, the black man is God. Well, actually, we was kings in Africa. Well, blah, 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 blah. And that's what a lot of that shit is and where it comes from to where this guy is, misquoting fucking... I can't, I'm just amazed.
Is there anyone else that you would want to quote incorrectly less?
Yeah. I'm just mad. Yo, the book was published in 2018.
And
Hitler wrote the foreword.
Yeah.
Well, it just goes to show you some people don't believe that he.
Well, Zach, it's funny. I read a book about that, about Hitler escaping from Germany, going to Argentina, and all of that shit. There's a whole conspiracy around Hitler not actually dying during the war.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never thought that he was a black supremacist.
But my thing is this: like, I didn't know you could do that. Does that mean I could write a book and say Martin Luther King wrote the foreword? Because he's dead. Like, it's not like he'll come back and say, no, I didn't. Like,
I mean, there's only one way to find out.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
do it.
There's a whole cottage industry that has been untapped right now of just having someone dead who can't defend themselves write your foreword.
And I don't want to be that person, but yeah, it's the same thing. The Rastas think that Haile Selassie is still walking amongst us. The emperor of Ethiopia never died. He's God reincarnated. He's still here. We have to dog him. We don't generally take shots at the Rastas here, but come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all.
kind of skeptical over anybody being alive. Like,
come on, it's a rap. It's a rap.
Tupac,
No,
like,
exactly.
Hitler, all of them.
Exactly.
Like, they're all dead.
Man's died. Anyway, man, that was After Dark for tonight. This was one of my favorite shows. I'm glad we got back today. We're going to be back on Thursday with another special show for you guys, man. Shouts to Isaiah, Amari, Vance Williams, Connor Tynes, Megan Hines, Uncle Ruff, everybody in the chat who showed love, all our Patreons out there, man. Thank you for supporting Count the Dings. If you're not a Patreon, man, get up on that to support the guys. We'll see you guys on Tuesday. Make sure you're listening to Bomb. Make sure you're listening to Naeem's sermon, which I actually did a quick guest appearance on tonight. Make sure you're just checking out everything. Woke Bros tomorrow.
Also, Cinephobe. It's its own thing now. Subscribe.
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 Best regards.
Subscription. We'll see you guys for Thursday. Peace.